Welcome everyone to the third day of the Clutch Chess Champion Showdown 2025. We have Domaraju Gukesh coming in, and the final day, the most important day of the tournament, is about to begin. Each win in this today's day will have 3 points. That is definitely a chance for any of the players to become the champion. Magnus is on 11.5 points. Fabiano is on 10.5. Gukesh and Hikaru are on 7 points. Magnus arrives. Pawn to e4 by Gukesh. And Magnus Carlsen takes his time like he always does. For the first move, he drinks a sip of water, then adjusts all his pieces, gets into the groove and pushes pawn to e5. The knight comes out to f3, knight to c6 and bishop to b5. a6 played, bishop a4. We have the Ruy Lopez on the board, and Gukesh is taking on Magnus in the Ruy Lopez because, well, it's an opening which is very complex and he already had a tough time against him in Norway chess. Bishop comes to e7 and now pawn to d3 played. So Magnus goes b5, bishop b3 and he quickly castles here. And let's see what Gukesh does. He brings his rook to e1. Maybe c3, d4 is possible next. Also a4 ideas are in the air. Pawn to d6 and now threatening to win this bishop. So c3, making a luft for the bishop on c2. Playing the Ruy Lopez against Magnus is quite a dangerous thing because, he just understands these positions so well. But I think one of the ways in which you can improve yourself as a player is to take on these challenges. You don't have to fear the best. You just have to try it out, and only then you can learn. h6 played, knight to f1 and rook e8 played here by Magnus. Just calmly playing here, I guess d4 at the right time. Will also be played, knight to g3 and bishop f8 is a natural move. Opening up the rook here, and Gukesh does go d4. Knight jumps in, attacking the bishop. The bishop drops back. Knight to c4. Now, this knight can be pushed away with b3, but I believe Magnus wants to place it on b6. So, on b3, knight to b6. And now pawn to a4 played. He pushes the pawn, takes on a4. Gukesh has 10 minutes. Magnus has 8 minutes 20 seconds. So Gukesh playing very confidently here. And Magnus plays pawn to a5. A good move, gaining space on the queen side. The bishop can pop out here. The knight can jump into the c4 square. Bishop comes up to d3. And let's see how Magnus deals with this. He goes queen to c8. Maybe trying to trade off the bishop here on a6. Pawn to d5. Now this is a very provocative move because with this move he does block the bishop. But black can go c6. That's what Magnus does. He asks Gukesh if he's going to take on c6 because then the c3 pawn will become weak and black would have a great position. So Gukesh goes bishop e3, attacking the knight. But maybe cd5 is possible because after bishop b6, there is de4. And you are forking these two pieces. If knight e4, there's bishop takes, knight takes, rook takes. It's a very tough calculation, but queen c6 attacks both the pieces. So that was a very nice variation, but Magnus misses that chance. Knight bd7 and now pawn to c4 played. Magnus quickly gets his bishop to a6. Now the position is around even. Maybe even Gukesh has some pull. h3 played here and rook to b8, putting the rook on the open file. b4 square is a bit weak. But queen e2, well, that puts knight on c5 as a dangerous move, attacking the bishop. But I believe Gukesh always wanted to take this knight. Now, how does this capture impact the position is a big question. Is it a good exchange for white or for black? Only time will tell. Queen c2 played here. And now rook b4. Now notice how all the dark squares have become weak because the dark squared bishop is gone. Bishop f1. And now because the knight is jumping in here, Magnus goes g6, but also his idea is h5 and the bishop popping out from this diagonal. Rook to d1 with the idea of perhaps pushing d6 in. Queen comes up to c7. And you can just feel it that actually there's nothing much that Gukesh can do here. He goes rook d2, wondering what the idea is. Magnus can take on d5. If e takes, he can push his e pawn. If c takes, he can push the c pawn. These are big problems. Cd. And now a lovely move, c4. Fantastic chess. While Gukesh has managed to keep up the time on the clock, his position is definitely bad. Magnus looking so relaxed. Opening up a bottle of water there. How should Gukesh play? Look at this. Bishop coming out here. He goes queen c1 and Gukesh has some ideas with rook c2. Putting pressure here. Also the queen eyeing the h6 pawn. Rook comes to c8, overprotecting the c passer. Rook to c2. Here, trying to attack the c4 pawn. Bishop goes to g7. Now, this is a move that generally may not be that useful. The bishop is not doing much here. But I think Magnus just feels more sort of secure with this position. h4 is met with h5. Yes, you get the g5 square for your knight, but you also give up these g4 square. The bishop can go to h6. Rook a3. A nice move, stopping c3, trying to put rook c3, but also at some point you want to swing the rook over for an attack. That's the only hope that white has in this position. Knight g4. Rook comes to c3. There are 1, 2, 3 and 4 attackers, but there are also 4 defenders, so it's not so easy. Also, this f2 pawn is a bit soft, and look at this. He's looking at that pawn on f2. Not at all easy. Queen comes to d2 to defend the f2 pawn. And now bishop to h6, getting the bishop into the game. You want to play knight g5, but there's f6. So queen e2 played. And now bishop f4, threatening bishop takes g3. This is pinned here, so the knight goes back to h1. Black is not even a pawn up here, but the position is just so bad. Rook b3. Now if you take here, I take cb3 and this pawn is just simply queening. So Gukesh goes g3. And now Magnus just comes back, bishop h6. Just spare a thought for this knight on h1. Absolutely locked in. Bishop h3, hoping to take the knight here on g4. So as to just somehow reduce the pressure on f2. But Magnus comes in, queen b4. How to really defend this? Takes is met with pawn takes. The rook is defended here. The rook can't go anywhere. It's not at all easy position. Queen e1 is met with rook b1. Oof, 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 oof. Big pressure here for Gukesh. Already with equal material. The engine says it's -6, which is insane. That's the amount of positional advantage that Magnus has here. And Gukesh, I believe, is running out of options here. He's looking at the position and resigns. Insane positional play by Magnus. Just a perfect way to show that he is one of the best positional players in the world, the absolute best. And what a win for Magnus Carlsen here.